Withhold not your truth or kindness, Lord. Withhold not your truth or kindness, Lord.
Welcome to The Notice, where together we notice the mercy of God. I'm Susan Hoekstra, your host. On this episode of The Notice, have you ever noticed how God speaks through the quiet things? It's not always through loud moments of grand displays, but through simple experiences which invite us to slow down and pay attention. Sometimes it's a conversation with a friend, a walk in the woods, or a moment of stillness that gently reminds us of His presence. And sometimes it's through a horse. So listen in as we talk with my friend and horse person, Cortney, about those ways horses help us notice ourselves, other, and most importantly, God. Because sometimes when we slow down enough to listen, we realize He's been speaking all along. Well, I am so excited to have Cortney here today. Cortney Moguel earned her BA in Equine Studies in Therapeutic Riding from Asbury University, where her passion for healing through horses began to take shape. After completing her internship, she joined Hooves of Hope Equestrian Center in Lancaster, Kentucky, facilitating equine-assisted therapy and riding lessons. Her work extended beyond the arena, training both horses and humans, assisting with horse care, and helping maintain the grounds that made those transformative experiences possible. She now serves as caretaker at Peace Ranch here in Traverse City, continuing her commitment to creating spaces where people and animals thrive together. But Cortney's story doesn't stop there. She also served in the Army National Guard as a military police officer, deploying in response to Hurricane Katrina in the support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Experience that shaped her resilience and perspective in profound ways. And I think we're going to need another podcast on that story. But above all, Cortney loves the Lord, and she finds joy in the quiet beauty of animals, hiking and running, photography and journaling. Alongside her husband, Anthony, she's raising three children, living out faith, service, and strength in the everyday moments of family life. So Cortney, welcome to The Notice.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. This is going to be great. Yes. And we're going to talk about horses.
Mm-hmm. My favorite topic.
Your favorite topic. Wow. Well, horses, they're strong. They're majestic, right? And they're just such beautiful animals. Mm-hmm. And I know most people would agree that when the conversation turns to being near one, there are like two camps. Mm-hmm. One is those people who are totally drawn to horses, want to hang out with them all the time and love being around them. And they probably had exposure to them at some point in their life. And then those are those of us like me who grew up in the streets of Detroit and probably just saw a horse at the zoo, right? Mm-hmm. And those, I feel a deep sense of caution, even fear, maybe not so much recently, but I originally did. And I'm sure most people out there, of our listeners, might feel like they're in that camp. But that feeling comes with a story, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Someone might recall a trail ride where a horse suddenly spooked us, or they may have heard about someone being injured. And others simply feel a quiet respect for the animal's sheer size and strength. So whatever your experience, listeners, recognize that standing beside a horse means standing near a kind of power that can feel overwhelming if you don't understand it.
Exactly.
So, but that power is actually part of their beauty. So God created these creatures. Tell me, Cortney, tell me about your life with horses. How did you first learn about horses?
Yeah, I think my first experience was as a 5-year-old. My dad had gotten a pony. And so I grew up living in the country and having lots of different animals. And so this Welsh pony, I don't even remember that we were taught how to ride it or anything, but my brother and I would go out in the pasture, climb on the fence, and walk the pony up to the fence, climb on its back, and it would take off and we would jump off the pony. And so that was kind of my first experience, and I was hooked. After that, I just talked about horses all the time. I dreamed about them. I read books about them. And so I begged my dad. We had moved from that place and, we didn't have horses anymore. So for years, I begged him, I really want a horse again.
Did you get a horse?
Yes. So my 11th birthday, right before it, we had gone to an auction and we had walked around and my dad was telling me, look at this horse and what do you think about this one? And he took me into a stall with this beautiful white horse and I wasn't interested. She seemed very pushy. And so I was like, oh, I don't know. I think I want this quarter horse. And she was an Arabian. So an Arabian horse is very spirited, and I wanted the calm, laid back horse. And so that was interesting. We ended up leaving that auction, and months later, I was sleeping on the couch and I overheard a conversation between my mom and dad. And my dad said, so the horse is coming this day and at this time. And I just remember being so excited, and I had my eyes closed and thinking, oh, I probably shouldn't have heard that, but is that about me? Am I getting a horse?
So getting a new puppy.
Yeah. I felt this excitement. And so I didn't know when. I rode the bus home, and we lived at this time, we lived in a trailer that was next to a gravel pit. And so some of our family's land, so they had a pasture and stuff around it and had animals. But I remember the bus pulling up and my dad was standing at the end of the driveway with this big sign that said, "Happy birthday, Cortney." And there tied to the tree was this beautiful white horse. And so that was the moment where actually it was pivotal in my life because it was the first promise my dad had ever kept to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you get this horse. Now, did you have to take care of it and do all the chores?
Yes.
And did you have a barn and a paddock?
Didn't have a
all
barn.
That?
For a while. We had her tied to a tree, which is not something I would recommend. And she did great. I learned how to take care of her. And I think within a month, we had a friend that was down the street and had a pasture and some horses. And so they allowed us to board her there.
Okay.
And so then we took her over there. But
now, did you have to go and do chores, cleaning up?
Yeah, cleaning up after the horse. Yeah,
feeding them.
Yeah, we ended up getting a goat as well, and we named it Dirty Gertie. And so this goat was out in the pasture with the horses, and I would go. And the place where we had her, the owner was very old school. He didn't have electricity or anything, so he pumped his own water and all of these things. So it was a really interesting situation, but he ended up becoming family. And so we took care of his horses. We helped him take care of his horses, and we got to board my horse there.
So what was the name of your horse?
Feature.
Feature.
Yes.
And how did your relationship with Feature develop?
At first, I was afraid of her, to be honest. So you talked about a horse being big. I was a shy 11-year-old who I didn't have much confidence. And so she was, in a herd, there's a hierarchy. And so her personality was very much a leader. And so she was very, pushy. To me, it seemed pushy, but she just would set boundaries. And she was the top of the herd, the top of the hierarchy. So the leader. She constantly pushed my buttons. I had to learn very quickly what I was asking from her or what I was wanting, because she would have her own idea. And so she'd want to go her own way or, do this little kick. And then I'd be afraid, why did she do that? Really the moment that kind of changed our relationship, I was riding her through an open field and something spooked her and she took off running, and I did not tighten the saddle enough. So the saddle started falling to the side of her. And I jumped off and landed on this concrete, there's the only concrete pad that is in this wide open field. And I shattered my wrist.
Ouch.
walked to the fence. She ran all the way to the gate. Usually horses, when they're afraid, they run home.
Right.
And
They're
so
flight animals.
They're flight animals. And so she ran all the way to the gate and stopped. And I was so afraid of her. I think it was probably about a month. And after a month of being afraid, my dad said, okay, we're either going to sell her or you need to get over this fear. And so I decided I really want a horse. I'm going to get over this fear. Mm-hmm. And that changed our relationship.
So how did you get over the fear?
Yeah, I just started reading, the books that I read. I started asking questions, and I spent more time with her. Even though in my body I felt afraid, I kept pursuing a relationship with her. Very quickly, I learned that you could have a connection with a horse that's really unique. And that started to develop.
Well, I know just my limited experience with horses, I have learned like little things like, first of all, their eyes, they don't look straight at you. Their eyes go out to the side. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to approach a horse in the front.
Yeah.
Because they're prey animals, mm-hmm. they think you're going to accost them.
Yeah. Yep.
And, I mean, that's just a simple thing. I don't think people really realize that. But mm-hmm. once I learned that, I'm like, oh, that's just intimidating to them.
Yep.
And there's so many different things that I've learned because I've gone in therapeutic settings with mm-hmm. them where I've learned more about myself and how I interact with others because of the horses. And for an example, that's one of the things. Mm-hmm. I just had to meet the horse where the horse was at. Yep. They were more scared of me probably than I was of them.
Oh, yeah.
And so because they're prey animals, they're constantly on hypervigilant. They're constantly on the look. They're like survival people.
Oh, yes.
And that's why a lot of times horses are used for trauma recovery because that's how people who have been in trauma are experiencing that.
Oh, yes.
So it's a beautiful thing. And we have a couple horses here on the property, folks. We have two, Hannah and Josie, and we enjoy having them here. But, some of the things that horses can do, they can mirror our emotions. Mm-hmm. So tell me some of your experiences with Feature and how you got over the fear and what made you kind of relate to her better.
Yeah. Well, when I was 14, I started 4-H. So I did 4-H with her. So I learned a little bit more just about how to take care of her. And I think that gave me more confidence too. And I did a little bit of rodeo and did a lot of trail riding with her. So I would just get on her back and go out by myself for a ride down the road and out in the country. At one point, we lived close to my grandpa's property, and he has some property in Pullman, Michigan. And so he had acres of blueberry bushes and pine trees, and I would ride through his land. One of those times she took off on me and I couldn't stop her, and I fell off her. And at that point I was confident enough that I went to her and I corrected her and I got back on her and I rode her home. I think just a lot of those experiences end up building your relationship. There was another moment that was very pivotal. She was staying down the road at a friend's house for a week while we were getting our pasture ready for her to come to our house. And my mom at the time was dating a guy who I didn't like. And so he was going to be coming over. And it was late at night and I didn't want to be around. And so I walked down the road. This is the one and only time I kind of ran away from home. Mm-hmm. And I went down the road and I climbed on her back, and she was just free out in the pasture, and there were all these stars. And I just laid on her back and I prayed. A lot of our time together, I would pray to God and just spend noticing God in nature and thanking him for, that beauty. And so my mom came looking for me, and she had a flashlight, and I curled around my horse, and she shined the flashlight out in the pasture, and she didn't see me. Mm-hmm. And she left. And when I saw his car drive by is when I went home. Mm-hmm. And so I spent a couple hours out there in the middle of the night, and those moments really were pivotal in my life and drawing me into, I want to know horses more. I want this to be a part of my life forever.
So is that why you decided to go to college?
It
for
is.
it?
Yeah. I made a
And there's
promise.
not that many colleges that have those kinds of degree programs.
That's very
right?
true. That's
Right.
very true. Yeah.
So you went to Asbury, right?
I went to
So
Asbury University.
Tell me about how you ended up there.
Yeah, that was definitely a God story. My husband, I had gotten married, so I had been going to college for a little while, and I was at Cornerstone University in Grand Rapids, Michigan, studying family studies and psychology.
Okay.
And I had a professor who had been working as a psychologist at a ranch with horses. And so he invited our class to come out and see what that was like.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the first time I kind of got a picture of, oh, you can actually, horses are great for therapy and for reflecting for people. And so that kind of put the thought in my mind. And I'm like, this might be something. And that was 2010, around 2010.
It wasn't, I mean, horses used for therapy is relatively new,
It
isn't
is
it?
new, yeah.
Like, when did it come about around, like, early 2000s or something?
I
When was
think it started, yes, growing early 2000s. I knew about it, like, when I went to college, when I first went to college in 2003, I volunteered at Chef Therapeutic Riding Center, and it's in Augusta, Michigan. And they're really one of the first places that ever had therapeutic riding.
Wow.
And so that's in Michigan. So the Lord was weaving these little pictures in my life. But like you said, there's not much of that happening. Like, it's very rare. And so I really didn't think that it was an option. And then my husband was out of work for 6 months, and we had our firstborn. He was going on like 6 months old, actually, around that time. After 6 months of him not finding a job, he had always said, I'll never leave Michigan, because we were born and raised in Michigan. After that, he said, okay, I'll go wherever the job is. And so he got an interview in Northern Kentucky. He accepted that job, and we moved in August of 2011
Okay.
for that job. And so once we moved, I was trying to do school. So I had benefits from the military, and I'm like, I really want to do this. And so I had been praying and just asking the Lord. I guess some of this story goes way back. I feel like I need to go back a little bit further.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So in 2005, I joined the Army in 2003. And so in 2005, I was deployed for Hurricane Katrina. And so we were driving down to Mississippi, and we stopped at a gas station, and there was this book rack, the Christian book rack. Mm-hmm. And so I found this book called Hope Rising by Kim Meter. Okay. And she has a ranch in Bend, Oregon. And so it was stories of these horses being rescued and then partnering with kids. Mm. And so I opened this book and started reading it, and I literally wept through it. Mm. The two guys that were in the Humvee with me, like, kept turning and looking at me and saying, are you okay? Like, I don't know that you're safe to be like with us. Like, you're a basket case. And I was like, no, I'm like, this book is my passion. Like, I want to do this. And that was the first time that I had, like, read stories that, like, really lined up with my heart and connection with horses. Mm-hmm. Because Feature had been that for me. I had a lot of childhood trauma, and she was a safe place that God drew me to himself through. Right. And so it was really special. So that was the first time that I was like, wow, God, I want to do this. And how do I do this? So I kind of tucked that away. That was 2005. And then in 2006, in January, I got orders that I would be deploying to Iraq. In the summer of 2006, I deployed to Iraq. I started praying in the fall, like, God, what do you have for my life? I know that when I'm done with the military, what do you have? The prayer that I prayed, I wrote in my journal, and the next day I got a box from a friend, and in that box were these CDs from Kim Meter talking on Family Life Today, with Dr. James Dobson, and 2 books, Hope Rising and A Bridge Called Hope, which was her second book I hadn't read. And I just started crying. I was like, this is really what you want me to do.
Right.
Like, this is the answer. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the direction.
And that was 2006. And so fast forward, now we're in 2011. I'm married. We moved to Kentucky. And I just jumped online and looked at the colleges that would accept military benefits. And Asbury University popped up. And then they had an equine program
Wow.
that had just started had started growing in 2010. And
So God noticed you, huh?
he very much so noticed. Yes.
He was paying attention.
Yep.
So you started your studies, and
Yeah.
that was probably a small program, wasn't it?
It was very small in 2011. And so when we moved, we had a 1-year-old, and then I actually was pregnant with our second.
Wow. Okay.
And so I really wanted to go. So that was in August. I signed up for classes, and I went in the spring. Was it the spring? No, it was the fall. Actually went through classes that fall. So I hurried and signed up right away and transferred everything. And then I went for 1 semester. We lived in Florence, Kentucky, which is right by Cincinnati. So I drove for an hour and 15 minutes, 5 days a week, to go to college, to go
having
to
2
Asbury.
small children.
While having
You were
one
pregnant
and being
and
pregnant with the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's amazing the things we do. when
I
we're young.
know. Oh my
gosh.
word. I can't even. I would put him in daycare like across the street from Asbury University, and then I would pick him up and we would drive an hour and 15 minutes home.
Wow.
Yeah, it was insane.
So then you did an internship, right? And
I
so
did.
that internship led you to and well, before I talk about just the play-by-play, so to speak,
Yeah.
tell me what you learned while you were at Asbury. What did you learn about horses that made you think of them more therapeutically or just in caretaking of them?
Yeah.
I mean, what
Yeah.
what was going on then?
So I went that semester, 2011, and then I took a break. I took a 3-year break because I had 2 very small kids. And so I kind of surrendered that dream to God. I was like, God, you've moved us here to Kentucky, and I give this back to you because I didn't know when it was going to happen. I went back in 2014, spring of 2014. The biggest, Harold Rainwater is kind of the founder of the whole program. He started it with a horse in his backyard. And he's also the mayor of Wilmore for over 50 years. So he's very pivotal in the community. He always would say, he was the director at the time of the program, and he would always say, God first, then horses, or then people, then horses. And so that is the running theme that you learn within that program. And it's so pivotal because it's so easy to think and elevate the horse above God and above people, because we have these connections with them that just draw us into, and it's such a reflection of what's going on in us that it draws people in, and it can become an idol.
Right.
And so
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
That feeling of being drawn in. If somebody were to ask me what my experience with horses, I would say it feels like it's a mirror. They pick up on my energy, and if my energy is off, then they might not respond to me.
Yeah.
But what that does is it makes me look at myself.
Yeah.
There's times when I've even said, Julie here, I'd go, I just need to spend some time with the horses. Because I need that mirror. I need to feel that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Or tell me a little bit more about what
Definitely.
that connection is with the horses.
Yeah, so with horses, I think as a child that just had a lot of trauma, I was very used to hiding and wasn't aware of my own emotions or my body, just very used to escaping. And with horses. And with horses, in order for them to trust you, you have to be present. If they notice that you're afraid or that you are distracted, then they're really looking for someone to lead them because they're a herd animal. In order for you to kind of build a relationship with them, you have to gain their trust. And it looks different coming from a horse than a person, because a horse really responds to our movements, even like our posture. If we're, standing upright when we're leading a horse, then the horse walks beside you with confidence. If you're kind of slouched down and looking all over, the horse isn't sure where you're taking them, and so they have a harder time following you. Right. So then a lot of horses will be like, well, I'll lead you since you don't know what you're doing.
So body language is a big part of it.
Body language is a huge...
Because a lot of times people say energy can they pick up on your emotions? And I know I had this one experience. I think I was sharing this story with you, how I was out working with the horses, and we were there. I was just being taught how to put the whatever you call
the halter on.
The halter on.
Yep.
Sorry.
You're good.
And put the halter on and walk them a little bit. And I had done this before. We had a session before, and everything went really well. Well, this particular session, Hannah, our big horse, she did not want to cooperate. I mean, she took off on me. Mm-hmm. She ran out. She even kicked, not me, mm-hmm. but she kicked and took off. Yep. She didn't want anything to do with me, and I'm like, what did I do? And what I realized wasn't that I did anything. It was just that internally, mm-hmm. I had to get going. I was in a hurry.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was in a hurry, and I wanted to get this session done because I had another thing to get to.
Yeah.
She picked up on that energy.
Yeah. Yep.
And when you say they want to be present,
mm-hmm.
I wasn't being present with her.
Yeah.
So she felt that as a threat.
Yep. Yep.
And then I was like, now just even understanding that makes me realize, I could maybe be more sensitive with people in this area.
Yeah.
Duh. So it's, those are the kinds of, those are just a little bit of my experiences, but you've worked with horses so much, you know them much more intimately than I ever could. If I were to ask you, Cortney, tell me about your favorite horse story, what would it be?
Oh, yeah. I would love to share. So, we talked about Feature earlier, and I got her when I was 11. And then my mom was a single mom. So my parents divorced when I was 8 years old. And so most of this time, I lived with my mom. And so when we had her at our house, it was just one parent's income. And so we came to a point, I was 17, and we could no longer afford to keep her.
Sure.
And so we had to sell her. The day that we sold her, I gave her a bath and I cleaned her up, just spent the whole day with her. And I was crying and hugging her, and I made a promise to her in my little girl heart. And I said it out loud that I would find her before she passed away, that I would find her again. And, thankfully, the people that first bought her, I was able to go over to their house and ride her anytime I wanted.
Oh, nice.
And so for my junior year of high school, right after we sold her, I still got to spend time with her.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that was good. And then I ended up moving my senior year to a different high school. So moved away from that area, moved away from interaction with her. And then, kind of life went on. She would come up in my mind, and I knew that she had been sold again. And so I didn't know where at that point. But had always had this desire to see her again. I ended up deploying in 2006, like I said, and in 2007. And while I was gone, she came up in my heart really strongly one day. And so I just started praying for her. And the prayer that I prayed was she's in trouble, is how I felt. And so I just prayed that the Lord would protect her, that if she wasn't in a safe place, that he would get her out of it. Prayed that for a whole day, and then it left, that feeling left. After that, I came home, and in 2000, I think it was the fall of 2007, I had a dream. And in the dream, I saw this trailer, and I saw this barn that was to the right of the trailer behind it, and I saw Feature in the pasture.
No way.
And so I knew when I woke up, I recognized that place. And so I was like, no, there's no way that this might be God. So I called my sister and I said, will you take a trip with me and bring your camera? And she said, well, yeah, what's up? And I said, I think I know where Feature is. And she's like, oh, definitely. So we get in the car, and I had recognized this place. It was so strange because I used to run cross country for high school.
Okay.
And we had gone out in this area that was far away from where I grew up to run trails. And so I recognized in the dream, like, the road. We drive out to this area, and sure enough, we see this trailer, and I see this barn behind it. And I pull into the driveway. And my sister says, what do we do now?
Right.
I was like, oh gosh. I'm like, maybe we just get out of the car and see if anyone's here. And so we both get out of the car and we start walking towards the barn. And this Native American guy comes out of the barn, probably in his like 50s, and starts walking towards us. And he looks at me and he says, you used to own Feature.
How did he know that?
How did he know? That's what I said. I said, how do you know this? And he said, I have your plaque from 4-H of you with Feature, and it's traveled with her everywhere she's gone since she's been sold.
Nice.
It literally felt like God was like, we were in the palm of his hand.
Exactly.
Like this was ordained by God.
Wow.
And so I asked him, I said, is she here? Can I see her? And he goes, of course. And so he walks us out into this pasture, and I'm like overwhelmed. And he goes, well, call her name. And so I say, Feature. And she picks her head up and she starts walking immediately towards me. And he looked at me and he said, she knows you. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh. And so I spent...
And this had been what, maybe 6 years?
This had been 7 years.
7 years.
Yep. Yeah, it was 17 that we sold her, and I was 23 years old when I found her. And so we spent the day with her. My sister took a ton of pictures, and it just was so holy. And I asked him, like, how did you get her? And he said, well, a year ago. He said, I saw her in a parade, and she was very thin. And I knew the people that owned her were into drugs. And so they were using the money that they were making for their drugs, and they weren't taking care of her. And he said, so I begged them to take her. And he said they said no for months. And then I offered them money, and they gave her to me. And I said, well, when was that? And the timeline that he said was the time that I had her on my heart to pray for her safety.
Amazing.
It was so holy.
Listeners, I hope you're hearing this, because this is what we talk about on this podcast all the time. Mm-hmm. God is around. He's noticing us. He's caring for us, and He's connecting us. And he did this through your beautiful horse.
Yes.
Feature. Wow.
Yeah.
That's. I guess I can just stop the podcast now. But no, right. Seriously. I mean, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, all these connections that you had with God and the horses reminded you of what that professor said at Asbury. God first, right?
Yes. Yep.
God first.
Absolutely.
People second.
Yep.
Horses come down the list.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so through your life, have you kept up with that? Do you feel like that's where things are planted in your life?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I can say, that was one instance. I mean, Feature was such a big part of my life. And when I deployed for Katrina, we served down in Gulfport, Mississippi, and we had orders to come back. And the next day that we were supposed to come back, we got new orders, and we had to go to Louisiana. And we went to this place called Lamar Dixon in Louisiana, and it was where they had rescued all of the horses and animals from Katrina.
Oh, okay.
And so they had a YMCA that was next to it, and they needed a police force to come and help them from people stealing from each other. And so our unit got tasked with this. And so we ended up, this is a God story. Another God noticed me story. We had been on the bus, and I had prayed and asked God, I said, God, I really miss horses. Could I just see some horses again? Well, He gives us these orders to go to this place where all these horses are. And we didn't even have enough people.
Oh, He's so good.
He is so good to be in this YMCA. So I had all this free time. And we stayed in the top of Lamar Dixon, which is this huge arena where they would have events. And we stayed up in the executive suite. So it's like these marble floors with glass windows that open up to the arena. And in the arena, they had all of these stallions. Mm-hmm. And so they had a guy who was in charge of them, and I can't think of his name now. But I went to him and I said, could I help you take care of the horses? I have all this free time. And he said, if you get approval from your unit, yes, you may help me. And I got the approval, and I went and helped muck all these stalls for these stallions.
So fast forward, now you're back in Michigan.
Yeah.
You got back to Michigan. Mm-hmm. You and your husband got back here.
Yeah.
And been at Peace Ranch.
Yeah.
Their mission is to intertwine those three.
Yeah.
God, people,
mm-hmm.
and horses, right?
Mm-hmm.
To have them all connect with each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So tell me about what you're doing there and how God has helped you in that role.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been such a sweet, we've been here for 3.5 years now. He's just brought up a lot of even things in my childhood that I had forgotten, of how animals and caretaking has always been a part of my life. Mm-hmm. We ended up moving here for me to become the caretaker. And so I'm responsible for taking care of the herd, the horses, and we have some chickens and an alpaca and 2 cats. Mm-hmm. All of them are used in therapy. And the thing that I love about Peace Ranch is that the horses are in their natural habitat. The therapy that is done is on the ground, and you go out with the horses, and they always have a choice in whether they want to be a part of the therapy or not. Mm-hmm. And so they can move away or they can come towards. And so them having that freedom has always been really important to my heart, because they have a voice too.
Right.
And we can learn what they're saying and respond to that. That has been a beautiful thing that I've gotten to witness and be a part of. And then just taking care of them, seeing their needs, building relationships. Like I train them and set up volunteers to help with training and chores. And so it's been a huge growing opportunity, and just in seeing the Lord in new and different ways.
Yeah. The Bible says a lot of different things about horses. Mostly they talk about it in Job 39. They talk a little bit about, do you give the horse its strength or clothe its neck with a flowing mane? God created these creatures, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
And they're full of power.
Yeah.
And I know personally, my experience working in a therapeutic setting with horses is that it's taught me that power is something that we need to be sensitive to.
Yeah, yep.
We need to be sensitive to. And I don't think I could have learned that without spending time with a horse. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful for that, and that, that God has showed me that you don't have to be scared of power.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That they can tell you something about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think, some of the reasons why horses are effective in trauma therapy is because we talked about that mirroring and that honesty. They build trust. You talked about trust.
Yeah.
Some of that nonverbal, that body language communication that you have with the horse, because I'm a talker, right? I just think that's the only way to communicate. Yep. Wrong, yep. Folks.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to communicate, and with a horse you can get into that nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you get an immediate feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The other thing I think is they call it somatic release or something. It's when you work with horses, it helps you reconnect with your own body.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And of course, we know about the body keeps score and all this. We know about this connection. And the greatest thing about horses is, guess what? When Jesus comes back, mm-hmm. folks, he's riding a horse.
Yes.
Revelation 19:11 says, and then I saw heaven open, behold, a white horse. Yeah. By the way, what color was Feature?
Yeah, Feature was white. Yep, white.
The one sitting on it is called Faithful and True.
Yeah, amen.
Reflecting on this episode, I kept coming back to one of Cortney's God noticed me moments. That image of her as a young girl running away to her horse, lying on her back beneath a wide sky,
staring up at the stars. You can almost feel the tenderness of that moment, the loneliness, the fear, the longing to be seen. Maybe you've had moments like that too. Times when you wondered if anyone noticed your pain, your question, your tears. Yet Scripture gently reminds us that we are never unseen. In Psalm 56:8, we're told that God keeps track of all our sorrows and collects every tear in his bottle. And Psalm 139 tells us that he knows us so intimately, he knows the words on our tongues before we even speak them, and every hair on our head. It's hard to imagine being more deeply noticed than that. So I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. Where has God noticed you? Where has he quietly met you in a place that felt dark, lonely, or misunderstood? Those moments when it seemed like no one else could possibly understand. For Cortney, God met her through the gentle companionship of her horse. For me, he often meets me through music. God has a beautiful way of reaching each of us in ways that speak directly to our hearts. So friends, keep your eyes open, especially in those hard moments. Sometimes it's there in the quiet and the ache that his love becomes the most personal. Until next time, take notice.
Or kindness, Lord.